Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like it if you're doing the like video, and let's get straight into it. So starting off with the boxing news, and Gassiev won via KO in round 5 versus Jung Kees, and this was last week's news, but I just forgot to report about it, so I thought I would come on here and say that. And it's nice to see Gassiev get back to winning ways after the defeat versus Wallin. I believe he might have fought once since then, but either way, this was against an unbeaten opponent and it was a stoppage victory, so perhaps he can still be a name involved in the top of the heavyweight scene, and that hype might return back for him. Canelo is in talks to fight Eubank Jr., so it's seemingly that these talks have restarted back up again, but also at the same time, I'm not sure because uh, Canelo's coach, Eddie Reynoso, has said that he denies that the talks are even happening again, and said that Canelo had his, Eubank Jr. had his chance to fight him before when they were talking before, but he was too difficult to work with and everything like that. So it seems like that might not be happening, but at the same time, that could be the biggest fight available currently for Canelo because obviously the Bivol versus Beterbiev is going to rematch, and then it doesn't seem like Benavidez is going to come back down. So, like I say, there is limited options of who is available really for Eubank Jr. unless he fights like an Umbili, but even then, that's not a big name to have. So, yeah, Eubank Jr. is probably the biggest name, but it seems like I don't know if that's happening, if they're in talks or not. Quartermain vs Bateson, Berry vs Ali, Giles vs Ashvak, Fury, Malloy, Stevens, Akbar, Nadeem, Hardy, Levers, and Ali will fight December 7th, and another good GBM sports card. Tyres has joined Queensbury. Ball, Shiraz, Kakache, Itoma, Davies, and Noakes have re signed with Queensbury, and to be honest, Queensbury may have a couple of years ago kind of gone for a bit of a dip, and Matchroom were kind of bought up and were taking over, but it seems like really Queensbury have got their foot back in the door and have re-established control as of recent, so I'm not surprised that all these fighters are eager to re-sign just like that. Zion will fight Maycock November 22nd. Cronin, Walsh, McConnell, and Furlong will fight December 7th. Dubois is allowed to fight anyone in the top 15, and he's been perhaps talked about fighting Wardley. They've given the green light to IBF, and so perhaps that might end up happening, but it still seems like the rematch for him versus AJ is probably going to happen in February time, so I don't think the Wardley fight is going to happen just like that, and is a very big step up for Wardley. Ud Manzai will fight November 8th. Pauls vs Bentley, Dacres vs Adelaide, Noakes vs Walsh, Noakes vs Rennie, Akoli vs Mohammed, Junior vs Oakford, and O'Leary will fight December 7th, and that is another magnificent 7 card and another very good show. And Bentley has been ordered to fight both Shiraz and Jarnabek, I believe, again, or either way. I know he was talked about fighting Shiraz, so it's interesting to see that he has been put against Pauls. I think there's a matchup in which perhaps doesn't do a lot for him. I don't know if that benefits him a lot. I think it's a risky matchup, but you never know that. I'm sure it's going to catch fire and be a great fight, but it's interesting nonetheless, and it's nice to see Dacres finally getting the Adelaide fight, and some other good fights on there as well. And again, another good, interesting Queensbury show, which is, like I say, they're consistently good with these now, and I'm going to talk about the one that happened just last weekend in just a moment. Wallace versus Wellham and Shuni versus Rabuti will fight December 11th. Richardson has signed with VIP Boxing. I think that is a great signing. She is somebody who has a very good amateur pedigree, and I believe will be a very good pro, and I'm excited to see her turn in pro. Hutchinson is set to fight Parker in February, so that's again another pretty good matchup. I believe again that's a Queensbury thing, so yeah, I think that would be a good fight. Hutchinson coming after the close defeat versus Boatsi, and Parker has been rebuilding himself after the defeat versus John Ryder. Matchroom have partnered with Empire Fighting Chance. Bevan has joined Matchroom. Conway vs Kelly, Suleiman and Bevan will fight November 30th. Walker vs Garcia was cancelled. Pitters has joined GBM Sports. Duarte is set to fight Akhmedov November 16th due to Sims Jr. getting injured. Queensberry have partnered with Dazn, and this is realistically quite big news. I mean, it was talked about and rumoured for a while, and then Frank Warren basically just completely shut it down and said that they were kind of happy with the deal they have with TNT Sports, and we're really trying to run it out. And it seems like perhaps they're going to have to run it out until April, but it seems like the zone's taken over. And I bet when if you were to look back in 2020 when Eddie Hearn went with DAZN and took Matchroom over there, and it was such a big surprise and everything like that, nobody expected at all for it to be the way it is now and progressed as well as it has done. And realistically, it's got the majority of the big boxing promoters on it now. I mean, it's got Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Oscar De La Hoya. It's got, obviously it hasn't got Bob Arum, it hasn't got PBC, and it hasn't got Boxer, and they're three big names, but so far so good for them. They're collecting a lot of the big names, and it wouldn't surprise me if more started to follow. I mean, even some of the lesser or smaller boxing promoters have joined, such as like a Salita Promotions or a Most Valuable Promotions, and so there are some other ones as well getting involved. But also Most Valuable Promotions have got Netflix deal as well now, so I don't really know, but still, like I say, a lot more getting involved now. Ahmed won via points versus Caicedo. Larvin won via TK in round 2 versus Schleur. Thompson won via points versus Jackson. Williams won via TK in round 2 versus Griggs. James won via unanimous decision versus Osborne Edwards. Taylor won via TK in round 1 versus Bull Mestars. Esselman won via majority decision versus Vaughan to remain European welterweight champion. Cameron won via unanimous decision versus Burkle to remain WBC interim world super lightweight champion. Masood won via split decision versus Davies to become IBO world super bantamweight champion. And to speak about that card again, like I mentioned, Queensberry doing very well at the moment, and another very good showing which seems to perform very well numbers wise from what I've seen. And Taylor, a very good TKO, rapid TKO, and I think that was a win in which he needed to build his brand, because he's definitely a charismatic type character who I'm sure fans can get behind and be entertained behind, because he is an entertainer, but he just needed to put them performances together and let his hands go enough. And he did that, and that's a very good stoppage win for him. Esselman, that majority decision versus Vaughan, was another Esselman great gutsy performance, and it seems like we always get that now. I mean, last time versus Cooper was an amazing fight, and I was lucky enough to be sat ringside for it, but this one was another very gutsy, tough performance for himself, and he managed to get through it. And he was and has been calling for the likes of like an Ennis and that, but that's a very big step up compared to fighting Vaughan. But nonetheless, he's still able to fight at a high level and is able to compete and put on entertaining performances no matter what. And Cameron, another good performance versus Burkle. I mean, nothing crazy. I think it was another conditioned win where she was able to pretty much do what she always does and was able to have a lot of success from that. And I got my prediction right for that. I thought that would be the case. Will we see her get a rematch, get the winner of Taylor versus Serrano? We'll see. But for now, she's progressing and has cemented herself in that kind of interim spot at the moment, just waiting and waiting. Masood, though, that was an excellent split decision win versus Davies. I got my prediction wrong for that one. I thought Davies would be able to win via split decision. I believe I said it would be a very, very close fight, and it was. And perhaps not split decision close, but it's still a close fight. And Masood fought excellently. He picked his shots very nicely. He was countering very well. He wasn't really letting Davies plant his feet a lot and get too comfortable, and I think that's what sometimes opponents do versus Davies, and that's where you go wrong. But like I say, a very good performance. Definitely his best performance of his career so far. I think he thrived as an underdog, and like I say, yeah, just a really excellent performance where his game plan was excellent, and that's credit to his team with Ben Davidson. And yeah, again, just showing his best attributes. And will we see a rematch? Perhaps, but if not, Masood can move on now and actually keep progressing back. But like I say in my prediction, it was interesting to see how, Frank Smith was there, but he wasn't really getting involved too much in the whole kind of build-up and everything. And Eddie Hearn wasn't having anything really to do with it. But now it seems like perhaps they wanted to have him back again, which doesn't surprise me at all. Moving on, Fuentes won via unanimous decision vs Pena. Iriarte won via TK round 1 vs Madrid. Stevens won via unanimous decision vs Dazn. Kalipov won via unanimous decision vs Lerma. Fulgham won via TK round 3 vs Persoon. Tudor won via unanimous decision vs Calderon. Fondora won via TK round 10 vs Alanis to become IBF, WBC, WBA and WBA World Flyweight Champion. Melekuziev won via split decision vs Stevens. Schofield won via unanimous decision vs Giron to remain WBA lightweight international champion. And to speak a bit more about that card and that show, and it was another, well, a good Golden Boy show in which perhaps we've been a little bit short of as of recent. Perhaps they haven't been the highest of levels of shows as of recent. They haven't really been. They've kind of been using a lot of their fighters and saving them for like the big Golden Boy card in which we have with Riyadh season coming up. But nonetheless, I could say this one was a good one. It was an entertaining one, and the likes of Fulgham put out a decent performance, and Fondora. I got my prediction wrong for that one. I thought Alanis would be able to overwhelm her and show that experience and be able to get in close, and I thought Fondora would get caught in up close a bit too much, and Fondora just boxed very well, and Alanis has a little bits of success at times, but she looked hesitant and struggled to get in, if anything, past Fondora's work. And I think Fondora is an underrated champion. Even now, she's undisputed. I don't think Golden Boy had pushed her enough or given her enough recognition to kind of be deserving of what she has achieved at the moment. And yeah, it's great to see it. And like I say, hopefully now she's getting this recognition with a stoppage win as well, where she was able to land very nice shots and get Alanis out of there in impressive fashion, where Alanis is coming off two very impressive performances, close performances, but impressive performances versus Esparza, who was rated very highly as well. It's a very statement-like victory for Fundora. And then Schofield, that unanimous decision was interesting. I think he fought well. I think he was perhaps fighting better than what we normally see from Schofield. I don't think he got drawn into too much of a fight with this over-aggressive style in which he does often come with. But Giron, of course, caught him, and then he adjusted and perhaps got into a bit of a fight afterwards with him into later rounds. But in the end, he did enough to be able to win unanimously and won the first 10 rounds relatively comfortably. And Giron, not a bad performance from him, but Schofield was just a bit too much and did show his technical boxing ability at a higher level, which was impressive to see. Moving on, Feliz won via TK round 2 vs Coulter. Mills won via stoppage round 5 vs Ohan. Tucker won via TK round 8 vs Madeira. Naiba won via TK round 3 vs Harrison. Muratala won via TK round 2 vs Campos. Nova drew vs Galindo. Santana won via TK in round 4 versus Baez. Foster won via split decision vs Conte Sao to become WBC World Super Featherweight Champion. And speak about that card and in general, a good top ranked show. You have the likes of that Naiba win, which was an impressive victory for himself, where I saw a comment which said he's like progressing, and if he keeps going, he will be like the real life Drago. And that could happen. He definitely has the look for it. Perhaps not quite as hench as Drago is in them Rocky films, but nonetheless, he's now an entertaining heavyweight who's getting his name around in the mix. And then Muratala was a very good stoppage win for him against an opponent who, I don't think he should have been in with, really. I think he is levels above him, but nonetheless, he had to show that. He had to go out there and show that, and I think he definitely did that in impressive fashion. And yeah, in general, a good performance from him, and now is getting back in his name in the mix, and I would like to see him again progress on, and that's another person who I'd like to see progress on, similar to that of Schofield. And also Nova, that draw, was a draw. He's always going to be in close fights with entertaining fights, and yeah, that was a close draw. And then also the Foster win, of course, another close fight for Foster, and another fight in which, Foster is catching a lot of shots. He's getting, hit with shots, but he's catching a lot of them, so it's not really doing too much. And again, he was able to have his own levels of success back. I think he definitely won the latter rounds in which he had to do, and he showed his power into the latter rounds where he always seems to do that and seems to improve throughout, and in general, an impressive performance. I'm glad that he got the split decision win, but he's always involved in close, fun, entertaining fights, and in this super featherweight division, I think there's definitely a lot of interesting matchups in which could be taking place. Moving on, O'Neill won via points versus Maguire. Dowling won via points versus Flores. Allen won via points versus Ocampo. McCarthy won via points versus Gonks. McCarthy won via points versus Lambourne. Murphy won via points versus Lopez. Borland won via points versus Turnbull. Farrell won via unanimous decision versus Kerr to become Irish Super Bantamweight champion. McCrory won via points versus Carrillo. And Davies Jr. won via points versus Fortuna. So, a good pro box ex Conlan boxing card. I like how them two are working together. I think pro boxes, with these consistent shows in which they're putting on, they're actually making a bit of a name for themselves and getting themselves about in the kind of boxing scene. And it was another entertaining card. Moving on, Avaye won by unanimous decision versus Cruz. It was the rematch in which, wasn't really that pushed or anything like that, and Golden Boy didn't really say too much about it, but nonetheless it happened, and it was for a world title, so she is now WBC World Minimum Weight Champion again, and I just don't think it was an excellent performance, to be honest. I don't know if Valle was just really underestimating Cruz in this rematch, and you know, or if the effect of Estrada retiring has got to her, or I don't know. But for a world title fight, it was just there, and like Cruz had successes in the fight. Was like one of them fighters in which he's just tricky and annoying, but not really technically that good. And I think Valle could have had a lot more success. She was definitely making Cruz miss into the later rounds, but I don't know, it just wasn't really an amazing performance or anything like that. So yeah, she's back as a world champion, but that wasn't really the most impressive thing. So I think with this minimum weight division not really being that stacked, if Vi is going to be fighting like that, then perhaps we could see a new name come through. Moving on, Vega won via unanimous decision versus Santana Jr. Barrientos won via unanimous decision versus Contreras. Gallegos won via TKO in round 7 versus Alvarez, and Ortiz won via TKO in round 4 versus Mino. Moving on now to the MMA news, Mohammed versus Rakhmonov is off, and that's sad, to be honest. I mean, I was excited for that fight, and I hope it does get remade because I'm still excited for it. But Mohammed showed that he's got a bad foot in toe infection, and so it had to be off. And Pereira has been offered to fight Ankalaev on that date, December 7th, which would be mental. What, 8 months, 4 title defenses? Crazy to perhaps be the case, and it seems like Pereira's up for it, even if Pereira isn't fully fit himself. I mean, he wasn't fully fit going into the Roundtree fight, so nonetheless, that seems like it might be happening, and we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that would be a very interesting thing to see if it ends up happening or not, and perhaps that would be a more entertaining fight than the one that was meant to be, of course. Holloway is going to lightweight. It seems like that was kind of expected and that was going to happen anyway. He's kind of officially announced that now. Landwehr will fight Choi December 7th. Horth won via decision versus Petrovic. Gibson won via decision versus Angeliga. Sidi won via decision versus Arnfield. Romanov won via decision versus Nascimento. Zalal won via submission round 2 versus Shaw. Jardin won via submission round 2 versus Henry. Zahabi won via decision versus Munoz. Malott won via decision versus Giles. Stotts won via KM Randall vs Barrialt. Jasa Davicius won via submission round 3 versus Lipski. Ribeiro won via decision versus Machado. Blanchfield won via decision versus Namajunas. Moreno won via decision versus Albazi, and Lewis versus Denise was cancelled. And just to speak about a couple of things, I mean, the knee by Zalal was a big knee and an impressive knee where Shaw perhaps was having success, but it was a big knee to then give to the submission, and that was shocking and quite sad to see as an English guy. Always want to be supporting English guys. And then the Blanchfield win versus Namajunas was a surprising win as well. Namajunas perhaps just couldn't really deal with Blanchfield, and Blanchfield looked like she had improved, and the scorecards were close and perhaps a little bit in one favour of Blanchfield a bit too much, but nonetheless, it was a big win for herself. And I got my prediction wrong. I thought it would be a lot more obvious and clearer in Namajunas' favour, but obviously it wasn't. So, that kind of halts Namajunas and perhaps halts the division a little bit because Blanchfield isn't just going to go get a fight with Fiore next and isn't going to get a world title fight next. So, I think she might have to wait around a little bit. But Moreno, that decision versus Albazi, I got my prediction right for that one. Moreno looked excellent. Him and Fundora, in my opinion, probably are the two standout fighters of the week. And I'm going to start trying to do that now because I would quite enjoy to kind of show these standout fighters. And Moreno, having fun in there by the end, I knew that he would be able to. Albazi would struggle to match the output of Moreno. Albazi looked slow, he looked stiff in the early rounds and was unable to really get anything going. Um, he had a couple nice takedowns in which I thought he would land, but then he just looked like he couldn't keep him down at all, and Moreno just got back up with relative amounts of ease. And then Moreno looked a bit more controlled in his work and a bit less, a bit more accurate in his work, which was nice, and didn't have to deal with the attacking output in which that of a Royval had when they fought. And in general, that was an excellent performance, and it's definitely put his name back into mention and back around in the flyweight division after the back-to-back losses, and has shown that he's not washed or anything like that, and he's not past it. Like I say, it's a very impressive performance. When you see Moreno like that, you've got to think he is a great fighter. And then Lewis versus Denise, that getting cancelled due to, I believe, something that's happened with Cormier and Lewis. Well, I keep saying Lewis is weird. So I don't really know overly what happened with that. But Lewis didn't want to fight on the card, so it's gonna be interesting to see if he even still wants to be working with the UFC or not. But yeah, I'll have to wait and see. Anyways, that is it for today's video. Sorry about my voice and everything like that. I am a bit ill at the moment, but I've gotten through in the end. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you didn't, leave a subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.